was our goal to be able to preserve history and do a lot of restoration work for anything that was a city-owned cemetery. So we've done a tremendous amount of work in here, starting with Lehigh was one of the founding members as well as her dad. And we actually started with the project that we first opened in 2000, which is hard to believe. That was 23 years ago with Veterans Plaza, almost to the date, 11/11 of 2000. So all of the things, the gates, the bollards, the walls that you see, the drainage systems, all of that has been work from people like you who have donated funds to this worthy 501c3. And then, of course, there was this fabulous person that came into our lives as an artist, and that would be Jeremy. And this fellow that he's not here tonight, but for those of you who know the sexton or the director of the cemetery, his name is Jody Gonzalez. And Jody they had this situation with a tree, and I'm gonna let Jeremy take over what happened. But he had the idea of a piece of art. And then all it took was reaching out to Jeremy, and he made it come true. So thank you again for being here with us tonight. It's a real honor and privilege to have you all as our guests, especially founding members of Myrtle Hill Oak Hill Memorial Association, and of course staff. Thank y'all, and please come around because Jeremy's going to tell you about his magic. And we are going to be filming this segment tonight so we can put it on Channel 4. Jeremy?
Thank you. Very excellent. I'm told this mic doesn't amplify my voice, it's just for the camera, so please indulge me on this. My name's Jeremy Smith. I am very, very honored. I mean, like, I cannot emphasize that enough. Honored to be the guy that made this. Like, you're gonna ask, everybody asks. I got started carving about 12 years ago, October 2012. My beautiful wife, Amy, back there, she asked me to carve a pumpkin for her pre-K class. And it's not that I had excelled in art in school or anything. I never even took an art class except for half a semester in 8th grade. They just put a lot on teachers, and she just didn't want to have to do it. Don't blame her a bit. So I did what anybody would do at the time. I Googled pumpkin carving, which had come a long way since the triangle eyes and the gap-toothed grins we all grew up with. And I was watching this show on TV on Food Network called Halloween Wars that had pumpkin carvers and cake artists, and it made pumpkin carving look really cool. So I'd sit there and I'd carve pumpkins, and I'd watch this show and I'd think, man, this carving stuff's pretty cool. I should probably keep doing this. And that's what I did. And eventually I was on Halloween Wars in 2016. But before that, I got tired of my pumpkins rotting, and I bought a $60 Dremel. And I got a piece of firewood from my neighbor's firewood pile. And I dremeled on this piece of wood for 4 months in my spare time until I turned it into a piece of artwork that I sold for $1,000. It was my first wood carving. And that was a life-changing thing for me just because it opened my eyes. It gave me a lot of legitimacy and validation. And instead of buying some fly rims for my Toyota Corolla or going on a cool weekend getaway, I bought my very first chainsaw and carving bar and safety equipment, which was a really, really stupid idea because I'd never used one in my life, right? Like if you ever come up to me like, hey, Jeremy, I've never used a chainsaw before. I'm thinking about starting carving. You think that's a good idea? Probably not. I'll be honest with you. It's probably not smart. But I did it anyway. And I did it because working on this tiny piece of wood, that's great. It's really cool. But I saw this show called Saw Dogs. I get a lot of my inspiration from TV, apparently. And it showed chainsaw carvers doing magnificent works of art. Not quite this big, but awesome nonetheless. And so I really wanted to make monuments. I really wanted to put something out there that people would see it and it would make people think and feel or whatever. The expression I like to use is I seek to touch the future. I want to have people in the future come past this and say, wow, whoever did that, they is on something, because that is a firework of art right there. And as far as the process goes, they contacted me on Facebook and said, hey, do you know anybody that can carve stuff with a chainsaw? And I said, I just might. And got together, and Jody, actually, he had the idea of an angel. And I didn't fight him on it. I said, dude, that is the perfect idea. We're going to roll with that. So his vision and my saw created this thing. And I even brought something for him. I use up a lot of equipment in doing stuff like this. You're pretty harsh on it. So I burnt up one of my chainsaw bars, and I wrote on it, your vision, my saw, for Jody. But he didn't show up, so y'all are just going to have to tell him about it tomorrow. But after they contacted me, I made some drawings, which maybe you've seen, maybe you haven't. And then I did a maquette, a little small model of what this thing might be. And if you notice, there's 3 different versions of the angel up here tonight. Now the smaller one, she's got her hands out like this, and they're kind of not attached to anything. And I knew that that would be a point of weakness. So I redesigned it with the practice angel. If you notice, her hands are attached to the scarf-like thingy. Not sure what you'd call it exactly. And then we improved the design even further by having her hands on top of it. You can clearly see the evolution of the hands from piece to piece. And it took about a month or so, maybe 5 weeks. I'm not really sure about the timeline for the entire carving. It was warm, I'll say that. That's one thing I remember, but it was not unpleasant. I have done a lot of work in my time since 2012. I have done work for Coca-Cola. I've done work for Disney. I've done work for BBDO. I've been on several different TV stations, several different TV shows, not just for wood carving, several different artistic mediums. And I promise you, of all the art I've ever made, this thing is my crowning achievement, is what I'm most proud of. I even had t-shirts printed up. I'm selling t-shirts of a picture of me carving on this. Did not think that would ever happen. It didn't seem like it should happen, but you know, it is. And I guess we're going to open it up to question and answer time. Who's got some questions? Okay.
Tell me about the tree.
Okay. So when they first called me to this, the tree was about I don't know, maybe 8 feet higher. And we came up with the plan for this angel. I sent them 2 different plans, one with their wings up and one with wings down. And they thankfully decided on the saner option. I'm so glad they did. But no, basically they cut it down to where, you know, the top is and cut the limbs off, but I did the rest of it. So what now? No. The angel's the tree. That's the tree. That's not a separate part of the. This is all tree. I want you to come up here and touch it. I want you to blow your mind just thinking that this is.
I did not know it.
But
I'm sorry. I thought you made the angel and set it on the pedestal.
I don't have that kind of power, I don't think, but I love where your head's at. That's the way I'm going to do the next one, I promise. Who's next?
Nobody wants to go after me. So.
Nobody. You ruined it.
I know. They don't want to show they're stupid.
How did you treat the tree?
Oh, with a lot of respect. That's a big tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't like falling on me. But I put Australian timber oil on it. It makes it that nice brown color, and it helps protect it from the sun. It's done.
And how long does it have to, what's the upkeep on something like
The
that?
upkeep, I tell everybody this, and nobody ever listens, but basically, you cannot put too much oil on this thing. Just make me happy, because I want to keep it around forever.
Mm-hmm.
But more or less, you know, every few months, couple months, depends on how the weather is, how the weather treats it. Basically, once it starts getting a little dry on the outside, that means it sucked in all the other oils, and it's time to put some more on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you said the tree was about 8 feet taller when you started this, and they cut it down. But what originally happened? Obviously, the tree was much taller than 8 feet above that. How did the tree originally come down to make this even a project?
Well, I believe I covered earlier how unqualified I am to do this job, but as far as I know, like the tree was dropping limbs or something, and so it was going to have to come down, and it was going to cost, because of where it's at, it was going to cost a lot of money to take it down. So, Leah?
Did you consider looking at any photographs or models in shaping the face, or did you do the face just from your mind?
Faces are so hard. So here's the deal with faces, all right? It is so much easier to carve a face like mine than it would be to carve a face like yours. And the reason for that is a dude's face, we got wrinkles, we got marks, it doesn't really necessarily matter if one of our eyes is a little bit bigger than the other, but with feminine beauty, symmetry is a huge, huge part of it. So like basically if you do anything to one side, you got to do it to the other. And so I would love to get to the point where I could be like, oh, hey, I'm gonna make this your face or somebody else's face, but I'm basically just trying to make the best face I can. Did you see the fairy that I posted earlier? See, I don't know whose face that is, but you know, I'm just trying to make them pretty.
What tools do you use for the detail? Is the whole thing chainsaw, or do you use any other tools for the carving?
Good question. There's a variety of tools. It's not all just chainsaw. Obviously, we start out with bigger saws, and then once we need to make smaller cuts, move on down to a smaller saw. We get down to what's called a 12-inch dime tip bar. And that means it's a little pointy bar that's about 1 foot long, and the round part is the circumference of a dime, hence the name dime tip. And it's got a teeny tiny little chain on it, and it's hard to sharpen, but yeah, you can get some detail out of it. And then the next step after that, once you can't get the saw to make it get any smoother or cleaner, you go down to the power tools, your die grinders, your angle grinders. The Dremel tool is the first tool I ever bought, is the last one I use in every carving. Apparently this angel has more names than anybody. Like literally so many people have come up to me. Now I call her blah, blah, blah. I call her Bernice, you know. If I was going to call this angel anything, my pet name for her would be Mary. Named after my grandmother, Mary Lynn Smith. She used to work at Turner McCall Hospital, excuse me. She was a WAC nurse in World War II. And to me, she was an angel. You know, she pretty much raised me, and I know for a lot of other people, she's probably an angel as well. And something I don't think I ever told you about. If you look up on her collar, you can see some stuff, some detail, some pattern, whatever. But amongst there, you will see an M and an S put on its side, and right across from it, a W and a P. The M and the S stands for my grandmother, Mary Smith. The W and the P stands for Willie Parton, which is my wife, Amy's grandmother, who I love and adore. And she is still with us. And when I got to show her this, and I told her, you know, I love you, Mama. You have just basically made the meek shall inherit the earth like your mantra, and you're just the sweetest lady on planet Earth. And I think somebody needs to honor you with something. So I showed her that, and she just cried and cried. And I was so happy to make that old lady cry. It was so good. Well, I don't think I have very much else to say about this angel other than, again, I don't think I'm ever going to top it. Like, I really don't. I'm very happy. I hate everything That is the curse of being an artist. Like, you see everything you do with the critical eye. And, you know, I could point out the errors in this, but y'all wouldn't listen to me. But nonetheless, I cannot argue with the reception that this thing has gotten. And I have never in my life ever heard so much praise for anything I had any hand in creating other than my 12-year-old son than this. Like, people have been so nice and so awesome. I don't know how to say it. Just thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.